Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here, and we are back with Virtuverse. So, the Virtuverse team challenged a player, and if they won, they'd hold an additional week of early access. They had to defeat a Titan matriarch solo. I believe, oh no, you know what? I think that was for an extra 3 days before. This might have just been on a magnanimity of the Virtuverse team. So, they did some updates, some of which I had the privilege of watching on one of Finn's live streams. Oh, it looks like I'm getting some help. Yep, that one hit with me like a truck. If you're wondering why I am using a rifle instead of the sword, the primary reason is because with the addition of the new day-night mechanic, or the day-night mechanic was already there. The current day-night mechanic, the night is so dark, I can't see the telegraphs. That, and they've eliminated the side sprint, which I don't know why they did that, but it has changed the dynamic of combat, because before I could side sprint away from the enemy, which in my opinion is a legitimate tactic, because if you train, you can do that. So, okay. I've been playing EA4 for about an hour total. And here's a couple things that I've noticed so far. And there's going to be a lot of criticism here. Considering the way that I evangelize this game normally, you're going to think that I hate it now. That's absolutely not the case. Basically, if I don't mention it here, I still absolutely love it. I also need to stipulate that this game is still very much an alpha. It's not due for beta release until next year. And so, we need to give the devs time to really do what they need to do. And I understand that. But, there are some things that I need to say. Number one, whether it was for authenticity or just because they felt that it needed to be more atmospherically dark, you know, the pink fog thing aside, I haven't figured that out yet. It's so dark at night that without the rifle's torch, it's impossible to see the mob telegraphs to get out of the way in time. And even with the torch, it's not necessarily the easiest. They eliminated the side sprint, which makes combat a lot more difficult, especially for a melee player who relies on side sprint to avoid attacks. I don't know if that was done for game balance reasons, or if they were trying to experiment with something, or if the way that it was working was just making it too easy, which I personally would disagree with. I found the combat to be challenging and immersive during EA4. So I don't know what the decision was for that. It could just be that they coded something and something broke. Because, you know what? Sometimes the code doesn't work. And sometimes the code is there and you don't know why it's not working in the way it's supposed to work. It's a very common trope in programming for the programmer to be staring at the code and they say the code doesn't work. Why? And then 20 minutes later, they'll be like, oh, the code works. Why? So I get it. I do. Been there, done that. And since I know that they're working with Unreal, and I'm very familiar with the Blackboard system of development, I get it. I do. I'm not super good at it, which is how I know this the hard way. It took me 4 hours to program a goddamn door to open. I wish I was making that up. I was making a... I was practicing how to do level design. And so basically I was designing puzzle levels that were very similar to Portal, you know, very, very deliberate. You know, never anything meant for market. But I needed to know how to make everything work. And it took me 4 hours to figure out how to make it so that when you put the box on the button, it opened the goddamn door. So, believe me, if they were to tell me the black, you know, a pin got unhooked during programming and they don't know why, I'd be like, fair enough. Fair enough. Shit happens. If it's deliberate, I'd like to know the exact reason. I mean, it's their game. It's their platform. They can choose to do it how they want. However, it does take a lot of the things I liked about the combat away. So, like, as a melee player now, I pretty much have to be able to tank and smack. Dodging out of the way in any sort of reasonable time to fight, say, like, this guy, when you're a melee player, it just doesn't happen. Now, maybe they wanted to make it so that melee players have to be tanky by nature. And if that's the design choice they made, then that's fair too. You know, maybe it was that the combat was just too easy. I don't think so. I think the combat was appropriately challenging. But that's me. But I am frustrated that the side sprint is gone. Out of everything else, I think that is probably the one thing in this that I am not very happy with. That and how dark the night is. Again, that I can put up with if I have the ability to fight the way I was able to fight. Because I can blind fight, right? Actually, I can. I have blind fought before. That was part of my training in fencing was, you know, cover your eyes and then defend yourself with a sword. I wasn't allowed to strike. I just had to defend. It's actually a way of intuitively determining where the most common lines of attack are going to come from. So I really don't have a problem blind fighting, as long as I still have all of my resources to use. And they've taken away one of my most powerful methods of fighting, which is to dodge. Maybe it's because they, you know, if you run to the side, you don't have to dodge roll. Which again, I get it. I do. I disagree with it, but I get it. Let's get my. There we go. It's like, which freaking key is it? I'm just gonna quickly test. Yeah, see? So that right there is probably my biggest gripe so far. And this is after playing for only an hour, doing my normal routine of fighting titans. So, you know, take that with the metaphorical grain of salt. Let's go see what it's like in other areas. I would like to know what the length of the day-night cycle is, because I actually got through 20 minutes of the original cut of this video and then discovered that I had forgotten to fix the cameras. Because Fallout New Vegas and every other game have different aspect ratios for some stupid reason. Probably because Fallout New Vegas is so old. So that's the thing. I might actually set up a whole different recording setup for New Vegas. As you can see, I've got the title cards now. I actually, for those who were not on my live stream on Friday, the guy, my buddy JD, who is the host of the Aired Out podcast on Facebook, go check him out. It's a lot of local Vermont interest stuff, but it's a lot of fun. At least in my opinion, it's a lot of fun. So, having spent time with him recently, due to my unsuccessful political campaign, I learned a lot about OBS and how to do, like, professional level recordings. And so I was able to do things like add title cards, and now I'm seriously looking at upping my game here. But to do that, I need to be able to not have mistakes like the one I made today happen. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at possibly creating a whole, like, this is for most games, and this other one is for Fallout New Vegas because it has a different aspect ratio. I've run into other games with that smaller aspect ratio. Most of them are older, and it really makes me cringe to say they're older because they were, you know, not older when I got them. And it kind of makes me hurt inside. But I mean, that is what it is, right? Oof. Yeah, this inability to go anywhere. Do that actually right after this video. I'm just gonna set it up for Tuesday's stream. Ouch. Kinda hoping I get the ability to knock my opponent. I remember being able to knock opponents back in EA3. I don't know if that's changed. Oh, God. I got too close to the canine, and now I've got two of the bastards after me. Come on. Wait, I can actually move slightly faster going backward. Okay. That makes a sort of sense. But I seriously can transverse step really quickly. Maybe that's a discussion I'll have with Finn and the others. Is, maybe make it a passive where after getting... because transverse steps aren't easy. I will say this. Being quick at the transverse step is a skill. And by that I mean basically running at a side step. And you can't do it for very long. But those side steps are critical when you're sword fighting. Like, you do not survive if you can't sidestep effectively. Which I think is part of my problem, is I always utilize the tactics I use in actual sword fighting when sword fighting in this game. Because it works. And it worked in EA4. And it worked in, to a much lesser extent, in EA3. But it worked. It doesn't work in a game like Entropia Universe, for instance, because, well, EU is not necessarily the most dynamic combat on the planet. You just tank and spank. That's definitely a much more passive combat system. And I'm not saying that to bitch at Entropia Universe. It's got its place, and it's an excellent game, which is, you know, why half the videos on my channel are from it. But if you're looking for a much more dynamic combat experience, that is not the place to get it. This is. And so maybe that's what I'll do. Yeah, because I'm not seeing any real difference. There's a slight increase in speed heading backward when you sprint, but no significant increase in speed when going side to side. No noticeable increase in speed, so it would be negligible if anything. So maybe I'll talk to the devs and say, hey guys, since you took this away, but it makes doing melee combat much more difficult, if not impossible. Would you consider adding it as a passive for melee players? You know, maybe even require level 2 swords. The level 2 sword skill has some prerequisites in there. That would make perfect sense. Like I said, the transverse step, the side step in combat is not an easy thing to learn at speed. And it's not just about being fast, it's timing too. Which, because this is a video game, it's harder to replicate that. Although, well, not really, because they've done a really good job with the hitboxes in this game, so. So yeah, Finn, if any of the devs are watching this, I totally get where a side run from a structural standpoint doesn't make sense. But as for including it maybe as a passive for swordsmen, because I can tell you from personal experience, this is something I have had to work on, is the fast sidestep. Being able to get the fuck out of the way to the side so that I am not in a position so that I can reposition myself to avoid their blade and then strike back. That is 110% a legit skill. And I think that being able to include it in Virtuverse, it's probably going to be way too dark in that forest to be able to see anything. I really wish that the sun would come out. I'd love to. The visuals in this game are outstanding, and the night cycle just doesn't do it justice because everything's tinged that huey, foggy pink. Let's go into the desert. Maybe we can ride a horse with no name. See, out here it's almost daylight. Probably because of the sand reflecting the light. That night sky is gorgeous, though. It really is. The visuals in this game are fucking amazing. Like, no two ways about it. There is no argument to be made there. The visuals in this game are fucking amazing. Scorpions are a little weird. And the idea that scorpions would be hive animals is interesting too. Is it just me or did the walk get slowed down too? Oh, look at they added detail to the sand. Check that shit out. That helps reduce the tiling effect significantly. Yes, 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 yes. Outstanding. Those two look like they're mating. Ooh. This guy's gonna take some. Okay, So yeah, running backwards does. It's just the sidestep that does not appear to be gaining any speed. Which I find rather interesting. However, I can work with this now. It's not perfect. I am noticing that my combat ability is better now that I can see the enemy. Okay. Yup. That's helpful. Now you're noticing that my combat style is returning back to what it was. So, much as in real life, being able to see your enemy and their telegraphs is desperately important to killing them. That was lame. Oh, that was totally on me. Not that it did any real damage, but try not to allow my armor to take too much decay. So before I'm glad that I came here, because the ability to see definitely changes the dynamic of the combat. So that was probably a good chunk of it, like I had predicted before. But I do need to test it against the Titan when it's not dark. And I think they've actually expanded the day-night cycle in this significantly. Oh, shit. I can probably tank a couple shots. A lot of serious load of hit points. Got him. Lots of chitin. Okay. Question is the sun up everywhere, or is this just because I'm in the desert? Well, I guess technically it's a beach, but whatever. I think the sun is finally coming up, so that's a good... Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sun's coming up. Daylight is returning to the land. So let's get our asses moved around the patriarchs, or the, whatever the fuck these guys are. Stalkers. They're stalkers. Glowing eyes are stalkers. And then go and try to fight a Titan one more time, with the benefit of knowing that we can do diagonal backward sprinting to a certain extent, but just not side to side. And I'm still going to discuss that with the devs, but I think knowing now that you can do it backward at speed, even though you can't do direct side to side at speed, maybe having that as a passive, or having a sidestep ability of some sort, might be something that I can convince them to do. Because again, I totally get game balance and needing to make sure that everything works correctly. I am a little frustrated at just how dark the night gets, and although I think Finn said that it wasn't supposed to be quite that dark, it doesn't make any sense for them to just, you know, up and patch it immediately. So they are good at being doing a lot of really responsive patching. So I have the feeling that we're going to see our first patch to this probably tomorrow. And actually, I have to admit, I was far more scathing in my first video that I have nuked, because I only got the upper left-hand corner of the thing again. But having gone through it and really done some work, I think that this might actually turn out okay. So let's actually move. Can I have my sword, please? Thank you. Okay. Okay. It's not perfect, but it's much more doable. It is much more doable. I can accept that. Let's pop into the world event. Them. Hitting them is good. Whoa, that's some sidestepping right there. All dead. Just want to make sure before I go through the trouble of like looting all these guys, I've got a decent enough lead to where I can afford to not be fighting for a minute. Out of the 500 Aurum pool, I'll only win 100 if I take first place. Which is fine. It's fine, it's fine, everything's fine. Actually, no, things are actually fine. So yeah, I guess when it comes to the update, so far what I've seen, the only two real complaints I have is the combat feels gummier. And that's probably because the combat was so smooth in the last EA, any small tweak was bound to make that happen. And I'm sure that they will probably continue working on it. Which I get, you know, it's an alpha. And I think the night sky is way too dark. Now, it could be that's on purpose to make it so that it's as realistic as possible, because who the fuck is able to do combat in the middle of the night accurately? You know what? If it's there primarily to make the torches, because the dungeons are notoriously dark too. Ooh, knockback. Which means that the rifle torch is really, really useful, right? And you'll notice that when I did the night combat, having that rifle torch made a difference. It does. It does mean that night combat is pretty much going to be relegated to combat infantrymen. Dude needs to stop moving. But you know what? That's fine. I can always spend the night fishing. I'm actually really fond of the fact that they added fishing to this game. We're actually going to call it there for this. We are the only ones here, so we're guaranteed to win. Finished. First, 150 Aurum. Cool. Okay, let's run back to the Virtu. I think it's this way. Hope it's this way. I think I'm experiencing a little bit of lag. You'll notice the my latency isn't terrible by the looks. I'm getting 2 separate ping numbers, so I'm very confused as to what that might be. So yeah, so far so good. Still good stuff put out by the Virtuverse team. As always, they are working really hard, and the love that they put into this game absolutely shows. My hope is that the way that they balance combat will make it so that we can have the side run again. And it might just be that it made it so that it was so easy to avoid the mobs, they had to do something to make it more challenging, which is fair. I don't have to like it, but it's fair. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I've got for now. Really glad that we got the extra week, and hopefully I'll be able to play more than just today and one other day. Of course, this means that Wednesday's video will be back here on Virtuverse because it is such a limited playtime. I'm going to take every opportunity I have to play. And then we're probably not going to get another EA until March, so it'll be back to my normal content. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, 1 subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. As always, I appreciate all of the support, and we will see you in the next one.